Hey there, good morning. My name is Miss Klaus and I teach 5th grade at Hardin Valley Elementary School, and I'm so glad you've decided to join me today. I miss my students so much, and I know your teacher misses you just as much. I hope you've had an opportunity to stay home. I hope you are staying healthy and active, but I also hope you've been practicing your reading and writing skills while you've been away from school. That's what we're going to be doing today is we are going to practice reading in order to improve our comprehension, and we're going to be doing a little bit of writing. Not too much, but we are going to be doing just a little bit. I hope you've had the opportunity to join Miss McAloon and Miss Owenby over the past several weeks, but if you haven't, it's perfectly okay. We are going to be starting a brand new text today. So if this is your first time here, again, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. And if you have been here once before, I'm glad you're back. And let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to share my screen with you because I want to share some tips with you on what to do if you're having trouble understanding this video. If this video is hard to understand, one thing you might do is you might turn on your closed captions if they're available. If you do this, it will allow the words that I speak to show up at the bottom of your screen. If you find that I'm speaking too fast, you may be able to adjust the playback speed to slow down the video. You may also want to consider watching short clips, then pausing the video, listening, and then watching it again. Or you may ask someone in your home to watch the video with you. Stop frequently and talk to your partner about what you heard and what you understood. Now, all of these things should be available to you if you're watching this video on a laptop, or some other kind of device, maybe even YouTube. But if you're watching this on KCS video or on PBS, the video will be uploaded to the KCS at Home website that you may go back and watch at a later time. So we're going to be reading from our Sleuth magazine, and hopefully you've not had a chance to read this story in your classroom yet. But if you have, it's perfectly okay. We know that good readers sometimes go back and reread quality text in order to improve their comprehension. So even if you've seen this text before, you're still going to get some use out of it. So let's go ahead and just jump right into our lesson. Now remember, when we are reading, we need to read as if we are super sleuths, as if we are reading detectives. And we have some tips that may help you with that. The first tip I would like to talk about is gathering evidence. Now, when you gather evidence, you look for clues in the words you're reading or maybe in the pictures that accompany the text that you're reading. You may also want to ask some questions along the way. Asking questions will help you gather more evidence and help in drawing conclusions and making inferences. Now, make your case and prove it kind of go hand in hand. When you make your case, that means that you're summarizing what you learned with what you already know, and you tell what you think. And then the prove it section is supporting what you think with details and key facts from the text. So make your case and prove it kind of go hand in hand. Now, think back to Unit 4 in your reading textbook back at school. Unit 4 was all about adapting. Do you remember what adapting means? Adapting means changing. People can change, plants can change, and so can animals. In science, we talk about plant and animal adaptations. Animals can adapt their behavior in order to survive in an environment, and over time, different organisms adapt their physical characteristics in order to survive in an environment. With everything that's been going on over the past several weeks, we have all had to change or adapt to our situation. We've changed or adapted the way we learn, and we've even changed the way that we teach. And going back to Unit 4, we read about different ways people and animals have adapted. Think back to the story Westlandia. In Westlandia, we read about Wesley and how he had to adapt to the difficult situation of not fitting in and having a lot of free time in the summer. Then we read a story about exploding ants. And this story was about how animals, especially ants, adapt in some pretty strange ways in order to survive. Well, today we're going to read a very interesting text about how other animals adapt in order to survive. Specifically, it's about how animals adapt in order to find food or how they adapt in order to avoid becoming food. And as we read, remember, we're going to be using our sleuth tips. So don't forget about those tips. All right. One of our very first sleuth tips is to look for clues. Whenever I'm looking for a clue, I first look at the title of the text. Many times, the title will give me a clue as to what the text is going to be about. Now, the title of our text today is A Coat of Many Colors. I notice that coat is in quotation marks. Why do you think that is? Do animals really wear coats? No, I think the author is referring to the outer layer of an animal's body. Like when we wear coats, it provides us an outer layer to help us adapt to our environment when it's cold. What about the many colors in the title? Well, this makes me think our text is going to be about the different colors or changing colors of an animal's coat or the outer layer. Let's look for some more clues. Look at the pictures on the page. How does the picture on this page show how a coat of color might be important? Well, first of all, I notice a lion in some tall brown grass. The lion's coat is helping him blend in with the tall brown grass. I also notice snakeskin along the sides of the page. This makes me think that maybe the snake's coat may help it blend in as well. Why do you think it's important that these two animals' coats blend in with their environment? That's what we're going to find out. Let's start reading and see if we can find out why. The first thing I'm going to do before we start reading is number my paragraphs. So here we go. Paragraph number 1. Life can be tough for some animals. Now, right away, I found out why animals may need to adapt in order to survive. Did you catch it? Because life can be tough for some animals. Imagine spending most of your life either looking for food or trying to avoid becoming food for predators. Right here are 2 reasons why life can be tough for animals. They either spend most of their life looking for food or they are trying to avoid becoming food for predators. Yet one or both of these tasks are necessary for individuals and species to survive. Did you notice here 2 words that the author uses? Individuals and species. Species is a scientific term that means a group of living organisms consisting of similar individuals. So it's like putting living organisms into categories, and scientists call the categories species. In order for some animals or species just to survive, they may need to adapt or change. Okay, let's keep going. Now, how does an animal's coat help it to survive? I'm going to go ahead and number my paragraph here, number 2. And come down here and go ahead and number this paragraph number 3. Okay, how does a lion sneak up on its prey without being seen? How can an insect protect itself from birds looking for a tasty snack? How do little fish avoid becoming prey to a bigger fish. Whether you are a predator or prey, the ability to seem to disappear into your surroundings is a huge advantage. Now, we just read 3 examples of how an animal may need to camouflage itself for protection. Did you notice them? What are they? The lion being able to sneak up on its prey. It didn't want to be seen. The insect not wanting to be food for the hawk flying above. And the little fish not wanting to become prey to bigger fish. Exactly. Now, I want to look at some vocabulary real quick. Just to refresh your memory, I want to talk about predator and I want to talk about prey. Remember, predator is an animal who is hunting for food, and prey is the animal that is being hunted by the predator. So I want you to think about how the ability to seem to disappear is a big advantage. You may have said because the ability to camouflage increases the chances of prey hiding from predators, but it also increases the likelihood that prey cannot see their predators coming to attack. Okay, good. Now, I want you to think about a word that means to blend in. Did you think of the word camouflage? Because that's what our next paragraph is going to be about. The word camouflage comes from a French word meaning to disguise. A camouflaged animal takes on the appearance of its surroundings. I'm going to underline that sentence right there because it actually answers our question as to how an animal's coat helps it to survive, because it helps it disguise itself. Next, we're going to learn how a few animals disguise themselves in order to survive. For example, lions seem to disappear into the tall grass of the savanna, allowing them to sneak up on their prey without being seen. Squirrel fur is rough, uneven, and a gray-brown color. To a hawk or eagle looking for food, the squirrel looks like tree bark. Some insects have a hard shell that looks like dead leaves or branches. Notice the picture to the left of the mantis. How is it adapting and using camouflage to blend in? His coat of green allows him to blend in with the branch he's landed on, and therefore helps protect him from predators. Now, which of the adaptations we just read about helps in the hunt for food in order to survive? Exactly, the lion. And which of these adaptations is to avoid becoming food? The squirrel and the insects. Great. Let's keep going. I'm going to go ahead and number my paragraph again. This is going to be paragraph number 4. Okay. So again, what are other ways animals use their coat to survive in their environment? Let's keep reading. Reptiles, amphibians, and fish are covered in scales. They produce colored pigments called biochromes. Now let's stop here for a minute. What is a pigment? Do you know? A pigment is the natural coloring matter of an animal or plant tissue. So it's the color of it. Biochrome is a color that can be extracted or taken out of a plant or animal. Now, there was a context clue in that reading that could have helped us figure out the meaning of these 2 words if you didn't already know them. Did you catch it? Colored. These two words are considered synonyms, which are words that have the same or similar meanings. Now, biochromes was a new word for me to add to my vocabulary, and hopefully for you as well. See if you can use these vocabulary words in some of your extension ideas later on this week. As some animals move from one background to another, they can quickly change color to match, making them almost invisible. Now, I am going to underline this sentence because it helps us answer the question, what are other ways animals use their coats to survive? And that was to change color, making them appear as if they're invisible. Imagine what it would be like to possess that. That would be really cool. In this next sentence, we have another vocabulary word that you will find in scientific text, and it is nudibranch. The author even gives us a pronunciation key right here to help us figure out how to say this word, nudibranch. Can you find what this word means in this next sentence? A nudibranch is a marine animal that changes color according to what it eats or its diet. Now that we know that big word, let's read more about it. Also, some sea creatures, such as certain species of nudibranch, change color by changing their diet. Their bodies take on the color of the coral they eat, so they become almost invisible. Imagine what it would be like to possess an ability like that. Now, this is another great example of how animals adapt or change their coat to their environment in order to survive. So I'm going to go back up here and underline that sentence. Their bodies take on the color of the coral they eat, so they become almost invisible, because that gives us another way animals use their coats to survive. But what about our feathered friends? Can they use their coat in order to survive? I think so, but let's find out for sure. What about birds whose coloring is in their feathers? Birds can't change color quickly, but many birds do change color with the seasons. Varying temperatures or hours of daylight cause these birds to grow a new set of feathers as the background changes. Now, what is the author referring to when he says the background changes? The different seasons. For example, a bird that is mainly brown in summer may change to white in winter. Now, why might it be beneficial for a bird to change its feathers to white in the winter? So it can blend in with the snow for protection. So in this paragraph, we learned that a bird's feathers can serve as a coat of many colors for protection. So I'm going to underline that sentence because it also shows us another way animals use their coats to survive in their environment. Excellent. So let's keep going. So let's review real quickly. We have learned about 3 different ways animals use camouflage in order to survive. Do you remember all 3? Blending in, changing colors to blend in, and growing a new set of feathers in order to blend in with the seasons. Great job. So let's move on to paragraph 6. And we are going to talk now or read now about how animals develop the ability to camouflage themselves. Now that we've read about and talked about the different ways animals use camouflage, let's read and learn about how they develop the ability to camouflage themselves. Have you ever heard of the process of natural selection? Well, natural selection is the process where organisms that are best suited for their environment survive, and they pass on these survival traits to later generations. So let's read more about the process of natural selection. Camouflage abilities develop gradually through the process of natural selection. For example, if an individual animal's coloring closely matches its surroundings, predators are less likely to devour it. As a result, it survives to produce offspring. Now we have a cause and effect relationship there. Because an animal can camouflage to protect itself, the effect is that it lives to have offspring. Now these offspring inherit the same coloration, so they also live long enough to pass it on. Now let's pause here for just a minute and revisit this word inherit. Now think back to science earlier this year, and do you remember what it means to inherit something as used in science? To be born with it. So these offspring or babies are born with the same coloration of their parents, and then they live long enough to pass it on to the next generation. So eventually, the entire species can develop ideal coloration for survival in its environment. Now, I'm going to go up here and underline our main idea sentence of paragraph 6 because it answers our question as to how animals develop their ability to camouflage, and it was through natural selection. So, the next time you're outside, look closely at your surroundings. You never know what might be looking back at you. All right, I hope you enjoyed reading that text, but we're not finished just yet. Now we've got some activities to talk about. We finished reading A Coat of Many Colors. We've answered questions using evidence directly from the text, and we've also made some inferences using what we read in the text. We learned some tricky vocabulary and learned the different ways animals adapt in order to survive. And we learned specifically how these animals use their coats to camouflage themselves and how the process of natural selection enables their species to survive. We've read the text, we've talked about the text, and even annotated our text. Now we're going to have an opportunity to follow up on the text that involves a little bit of writing in response. So we have a couple of different activities for you. The first one would be to gather evidence. This is where you're going to go back into the text and find information that explains 3 different ways animals change colors. Now, we read about those 3 ways and we even talked about them. So hopefully you'll be able to go back and find exactly in the text where it explains this. Another activity you could do would be to ask questions. You could write down 2 questions about animal camouflage that you would like to ask an expert. Imagine if you could sit down with an animal expert and ask any 2 questions about animal camouflage that you want to. Now, when you do this, I don't want your questions to be answered with simple yes or no answers. I want you to think about a thought-provoking question where the animal expert would have to explain to you. So they couldn't just answer with a yes or a no. Another activity might be to pretend like you were doing a presentation about this topic to first graders. What conclusion about animal camouflage would you want them to reach? And I would want you to explain your reasoning using details from the text to support your answer. Some more ideas might be to do some research. Research other animals that use camouflage in order to survive. Create a presentation for your family. Think about a variety of ways you could present your information. You could do a Google slide presentation. You could illustrate a poster. You could create an informative brochure. You could even write an informative essay. You could design your own animal, create a brand new type of animal, and think about the following: the type of camouflage your animal would need for survival, your new animal's habitat and environment. Think about your animal's position in nature. Would it be considered prey, or would it be considered a predator? Think of a brand new name for your animal reflecting its characteristics. You could also design a poster illustrating your new animal and its habitat. All of these are great ideas you could work on later on this week if you enjoyed learning about how animals use their coat in order to survive. Now that we have finished our text, we've read it and answered some questions about it, I just want to thank you for joining with me today, and thank you for participating in this lesson. I enjoyed reading about how animals use their coats in order to survive with you. I'd also like to say thank you to Mrs. Parkhill from Inskip Elementary for her help in planning this lesson with you. I hope you stay active and healthy, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.